Alright, welcome back. I'm going to show you the next step in preparing our Berdan Brass to be reloaded. I've removed the primers. You can see the earlier videos on how I did that. And again, just a reminder, that process that I showed was really only necessary because the primers on these particular brass from whether Greek, World War II era Greek brass, were just really stubborn. I couldn't make the two hydraulic methods that I tried previously to work without incurring too much loss on the brass. I was losing about 50%, and that was I just wasn't willing to incur that kind of loss. So anyway, you can see I've got these all deprimed, and if you can make the hydraulic method work for you, that's the way I would recommend to go. But if not, if you have brass that the primers are just so stubborn that the hydraulic method's not working well, then the method I showed is a good alternative. At least for me it was. Alright, so I've got 100 or so brass here that I've removed the primers on. Most are 8mm. There's a few 7.62 NATO in there from Redway Green, but most of them are 8mm. So I want to show you the next step. What we need to do is prepare the case mouth by removing the crimp and prepare the case mouth to receive the primer. Right now the Berdan primers are excuse me, the Berdan primers are slightly smaller than the boxer primers for rifle brass, but I'm going to be using a tool for priming the brass that is designed for boxer primers. Well, if we can widen the case mouth, or not the case mouth, the primer pocket mouth just a tad, it makes it a little easier for that primer to find where it belongs, and then we can press it home. So essentially we got to do those two things. Now I got the idea from a video. I'll try to remember to add a link that I had seen for a man who was reloading some Swedish brass, some 6.5 by 55mm Mauser that was also Berdan primed. And after he'd gotten the primers out, and he used a hydraulic method, but he looks like he had a tool that he was able to make using maybe a milling machine or something. And if I had access to a milling machine, that's what I would have loved to have done. But I don't have such a tool at hand. Anyway, after he got the primers out, he prepared the primer pocket using a pocket knife, just scraping around the edge. Well, that seemed like a lot of work to me. Just depriming was a lot of work, and I just didn't want to. I wanted to find an alternative, and I think I found one. Now what inspired me was this that my wife had. It's a grinding stone. And I thought, you know, that with that round surface, I'll bet you I could grind, just slightly, just grind the edges off of the primer pocket. Well, that worked really well. But as you can see, I had to buy a new one. And the reason being, this just wasn't durable enough. And I was only able to maybe get 15 to 20 brass pockets prepared appropriately before it wore out. So I had to buy my wife a new one for her Dremel tool. Well, that was disappointing because it worked really well. So I looked around, and finally, after searching high and low on the internet, I found this. It is a tough tungsten carbide 3/8 inch ball carbide cutter, fine. And I got that from a hobby shop in Georgia. I'll try to remember to add a link to that hobby shop, maybe even to this, and maybe you can find that useful. Now, I'll show you now what I've done. You can probably already figure it out. I've got this carbide cutter chucked up in the drill, and we're going to use that. So line this. First of all, let's clamp this down. And I clamp it down because this gives me a little better hold on it, safer hold on it, and also the the hole in this block is not a perfect fit, so it allows too much wobble. This way I can control that better. So I'll line it up, turn it on, and we're just going to kiss it. We're just going to barely take the edge off of that. Alright. I hope you can see that, but it just barely removed the edge on that primer pocket. So that should have gotten rid of the okay, word escapes me, the crimp, and just opened up that case mouth just a tad. And that's all we really want to do. Let's do a couple more. That's really all we need to do, is just give it just a little bit of a kiss. We certainly don't want to get carried away. Okay, I can see by the color of the primer sealant that was on there that this is, I think, Bosnian brass, not Greek, but this is again 8mm. Okay, that's 3. I'll do 2 more. One more. Another Bosnian, I think. If not Bosnian, then Yugoslavian. Sorry, it's not Bosnian. I know it's not. I believe it's Yugoslavian. Alright. Not that that was really important for you guys to know. But anyway, alright. There we go. I've got 5 primer pockets prepared that quickly. And I anticipate that will last maybe for, well, quite a long time in helping me prepare brass. So open at least another 1,000 cases. So I'll be back in a moment. We'll head downstairs and I will show you the next steps. Alright, I moved into the basement, into my workroom where I do my reloading, and we'll move on to the next step. Now, I noticed in the previous video that this didn't really focus, so I don't know if you can read that. I was hoping the automatic focus would do anything, but it doesn't seem to while it's videoing. So, I'll read that to you again. It's Cutter's Tough Tungsten Carbide, model 461F, 3/8 inch ball carbide cutter. Fine. So that's what I used to prepare the case mouth, and I found that to be quite convenient and very simple, and will be, I think I can show you here in a moment why that was actually also, I don't know if important is the right word, but how it facilitates repriming. Alright, but the next step is actually sizing. Now, one thing I've done since preparing the case mouths is I've cleaned the brass. So I've run them through an ultrasonic cleaner to clean the inside and out. They didn't really, I don't know why. It seems like anybody else uses an ultrasonic cleaner, their brass comes out looking so shiny, but mine always has spots, even though I use distilled water. Alright, but that's all beside the point, right? Okay, so what we need to do now is size the brass. Make sure the case length is good. I have this handy dandy Lyman tool, case length gauge, and it should fit right in right there. And you can see that one fits a little, well, it doesn't fit. So we're going to size it. Now, what I had to do, I ordered this Lee case length gauge and shell holder, and it comes and typically has a pin on the end like this. This is my 30-06 case length gauge for reloading boxer primed brass. Well, this had the same pin on it, and I was going to just whack it off, but I thought I'd better measure. And after measuring, it really came down to just whacking it off. So you clearly want to preserve the shoulder here. And there's actually, I don't know if you can see it, there is just a bit of a stub. I still tried to hold to the measurement that I'd measured. So, but this works out pretty well now. So I've got it mounted to my cutter, and do that over this can that I put my reject brass, and well, I collect all my 22 brass and stuff, throw it in here too, and eventually I'm going to take this stuff all into a metal recycler and get some money back. All right, cut that. Measure again, see? All right, so that's a good length now. Let's go ahead and get the shavings off, inside and out. All right, that's good. Let's do a few more. So measure first. So that one's darn close. I'm just gonna trim it a little. Just give it a quick trim. Okay, good. A few more, measure first. I have found a few of these that didn't need to be cut. Oh, this is interesting. I wonder if there's a... Oh, I see. Case mouth is dented. There we go. Okay. All right, good enough. Okay, let's do two more. Measure first. That one's good, see? One more. Trim that one a little. Okay, that looks good. All right, we have 5 prepared. Get this out of the way. And the next step is to prime them. So we have 5 cases here prepared, and we need to get our primers out. See if we can get just 5. Okay, that's good. Now, I'll be using this Lee hand priming tool, and it works pretty well. The only, as I mentioned previously, the only real issue here, let me take this off, is that these primers are slightly smaller than a boxer primer. So the fit here isn't perfect, which is okay, except for once you put the brass on, the primer doesn't line up perfectly with the primer pocket. But that's why we added just a little bit of a bevel to the case, or not to the case mouth, to the primer pocket. So show you how that works now. Let's go ahead and put, and I like to do them just one at a time. So there, I got that in there. Put our brass on. Now, the way that works with the bevel is I can take up the tension. Now I can spin this, and I have to admit, I learned this from the gentleman that was loading the 6.5 by 55 mm Mauser brass. So this isn't an idea that I came up with. I learned it from him, and again, I'll try to remember to add the link to his videos, and I think he has a series of 3 that takes you from beginning to end. All right, so Now we just twist this brass a little, and I don't know if you saw that, maybe not, but I felt it. I felt that the primer click into place, so I know it's now lined up. And I can just press, and that's not going in. Let's try a different one. Oh, look, see that the primer is tipped. I don't know how that happened. Alright, let's try this again. Okay, take up the slack, and I've done this a good 15 or 20 times. This really has worked well, so that's the first time I've really had a problem like that. We'll spin this a little bit. There, so now I just felt that click, the brass click into place. Squeeze. There we go. Alright. And there we go. One primed brass. Let's try this other one again. See if we can get that one to work. Slid in there. The primer looks good. It's all laying there nicely. Take up the slack. Spin the brass. Try this again. There we go. Okay, I felt that click into place. And squeeze. There we go. Okay, that's 2. 3 more. Take up slack. Oh, I felt that already go into place. Okay. Squeeze. Alright, that one's good. And that was that Yugoslavian brass that I was mentioned in the previous, when we were preparing the case pocket. Alright. One more. Oops. Let's make sure that's in there right. It looks good. Take up the slack. Spin. Okay, I felt that. And squeeze. 4. One more. Okay, that's in there good. See if we can do this so that you can see. Take up the slack, spin. Oh, there, did you see that go down? Okay, so it's lined up. Squeeze, and done. Alright, 5 Berdan primed brass, ready to reload. So that works out well if you have that little bit tiny bevel on the case mount, on the primer pocket mouth. It helps the primer to slide into place. So that was a good idea that gentleman showed, and so I used that. All right, and that Carbide cutter I think really helped make that whole process a lot easier and quicker. All right, we have 5 primed brass, cleaned brass. Let's move to the reloading step. All right, the next step. Now we need to load our brass with the powder and a bullet. So I've got this set up, my lead turret press. I've taken out this center column that automatically advances the press. I'm going to do it by hand with the rifle brass, with the rifle stuff, and part of the reason is because I'm using this, what's it called? A rifle charging die. It's really designed to work, well, let me swing this around, with that hopper up there. For the life of me, I can't think of what Lee calls it right now. But anyway, what I found is that it works well. There are discs, or there's a micrometer thing that you can set for your volume of powder so that it drops it automatically using this charging die. However, the problem that I found is that they don't have discs large enough to accommodate 8mm or 30-06 or even 308. I can get it to work with 223, but beyond that I need something more, and so I actually have acquired this to measure my rifle powder. And I feel much more confident with that as it is. But this, I still use this rifle charging die with funnel on there to help facilitate. There is one drawback. That being, if you can see the mess, every now and then I forget to raise to put the case mouth against the bottom of the rifle charging die, and I get powder all over. So that's just part of getting older, I guess. At least that's my excuse. So, all right. Most of this is no different than loading boxer brass. The two differences are that, number one, we've already primed our brass. In some cases that's going to be the case with many of you, as it is anyway. It's just that this press is designed to do the priming as you finish sizing the brass. So we won't be priming the brass with the press. Already been primed. The other difference is that I got this set wrong. This sizing die has one of these in it for punching out, for doing two things. One is to punch the primer out, which of course we don't need it to do, and to uniformly size the case mouth from the inside. Now, we do need to uniformly size the case mouth, but we don't need to punch the primer out. So what I've done is I've cut that off and put a replacement in here, which real quickly, I'm going to pause for a moment. Alright, I'm back, if you couldn't tell. What I had done is, and this is the problem I was having with the dirty brass, and I'm hoping cleaning the brass will have made a difference. But in most of the cases, this was getting stuck in the case mouth, and the brass was then yanking this out of the sizing die. So I guess we'll see here in a moment whether that's made a difference. If it hasn't, I may just pull that out altogether. Now, I think I already said this, so I've ordered a replacement piece, and I actually ordered it some time ago to try to use in the hydraulic method of depriming, and it just didn't work out well for me. But because I had a piece and I had cut this off so that I didn't have the problem of jamming into the bottom of the case and perhaps damaging the brass or the piece, I had cut that pin off. Well, I've replaced, this is the one that came originally with the die. I've taken that one that I've cut the pin off and placed that in here. So that's the other difference. Other than that, I'm not using the press to prime, and I've cut the pin off of the neck expander. That's the only thing different from reloading regular boxer brass. So let's go ahead and do this. Lube the case inside and out. And here we go. Let's see what happens. Nope. It pulled it down, so I had to jerk it. So cleaning the brass didn't make any difference. So I'm just going to have to deal with that. Alright, next step, I'm going to spin it over to the rifle charging die. Raise this so that it's at least, you don't want to jam it up in there, but you don't want to make sure it goes in. And get my powder, which I've already pre-measured, and pour that in. Get the next charge ready. Make sure the powder all goes in, otherwise you get a mess. And let's get our bullets. Is there anything more beautiful than fresh thing of bullets, fresh box of bullets? Well, I can think maybe a few things, or a few someones, but That's just a beautiful sight, I think. All right, let's seat the bullet, and there we go. We got ours done. I was going to do all 5, but given the problem I'm having with the neck sizing thing, I'm going to just leave it with the 1 for now until I can figure out what I want to do about the neck expander that's in the sizing die. But there you go. I think I might need to, because that got wet, maybe I need to just polish it a little bit with some fine steel wool or something. Maybe that'll help. But that's the steps I'm using to reload my 8mm Berdan brass, and I'll be doing the same with my 7.62 NATO brass that I have in time. Is it worth it? Nah, at least for 8mm I believe it is for me. The 7.62 NATO, maybe not, but I have it. I hate to throw it away, so I'll probably go ahead and go through the exercise of reloading that as well. It's an individual's choice as to whether that's what they want to do or not, whether they want to reload this Berdan brass or not. But those are the steps that I use, and I hope somebody out there finds it helpful. Thanks for watching. Alright, a quick addendum. I took this out to the garage, to the drill press, to see if I could use steel wool or something to remove some of the tarnish, some of the water stains, rust, whatever. It didn't really look like rust, but there was some stains of sorts. I thought that was the problem, but now that I run my fingernail across here, my thumbnail, I can tell that I've damaged this when I was trying to use the hydraulic method. There's some scratches on here. I doubt that I can polish those out. I don't know that I have what I need to do that. So that is why it's sticking inside the case mouth. So I'm going to either have to sacrifice this one, which I was hoping not to do because eventually I anticipate having some boxer primed 8mm brass, or, well, I'm going to try without this and see if that works. Because all of this brass was shot with bolt action, so none of them should have terribly deformed case mouths. But anyway, that I believe is the issue. I've got scratches on here that apparently occurred when I was trying to use it to use the hydraulic method to deprime some of the brass. And I believe that is why this is grabbing those, or refusing to pull back out of the case mouth. So there you go. So don't make that mistake. Thanks.